All right. Great. All right, Elise, welcome. We're meeting tonight in the evening to record. So it's so great to have you because the skills that you have are amazing. And I just want to share them with all our audience because you've got the same philosophy as well. But this is going to be really skill building because that's where your strength is. So I want to jump straight in. Negotiation tips. Here we go. What have you got for us?
Well, I've got a few, but I'm going to start right at the beginning with any negotiation, and that is preparation. Preparation is key. Anything else I tell you is important, but without preparation, you haven't even begun to start achieving what you could in negotiation. So from my perspective is when you know you've got a negotiation, whether it's a commercial transactional one or it's a dispute resolution negotiation, you have to prepare and prepare properly. In a way, I say it's like going to court. You would never walk in front of a judge, well, hopefully, and just start speaking and hope that you're going to get what you want. You would prepare with it in an inch of your life. You would gather evidence together to prove why someone like the judge should award you what you're looking for. It's the same going into a negotiation. You need to persuade the other side that they want to give you or that they will give you what you need and what you're asking for. And in order to do that, you've got to prepare to persuade.
Wonderful. What do you start with in the preparation? Because I suppose there's some factual evidence, perhaps. So you gather as much stuff that you can to take along with you.
Yeah. So the first thing you do is you first, I say you zoom out first and say, why am I here and what am I hoping to achieve? Not specifics, but why am I going into this negotiation? And I know you wanted me to focus on conflict resolution, so I'll focus on that. So why is there a conflict, right? And who is involved in this conflict? Is it just me and someone else, one other person, or is it a group of us? Is it a community? Who's involved? Is it me and my child, my husband? Who is involved in this conflict? So firstly, who and why are we here? Right? That's the first thing. Once we know who and why, we then build it into more detail. So what is it that has led us to this point in time? And that's where we start with the facts. Go chronologically. So take the facts chronologically. That might not work when you begin because you've got a whole lot of stuff going through your mind, and that's fine. So write everything down as it comes into your head. What happened? How did it happen? Where did I go with this? And you put all that, I call it a brain dump of your information, your facts. And then once you've written everything that you can think of why you got here, how you got there, what is this that's got us to this point, you then distill those facts. So you divide it into chronology. When did this happen? Was it first step, second step to us reaching this moment in time? And then after that, do I have anything that confirms my facts? So, for example, if you're busy having a dispute as to whether you received money or you didn't receive money, right? I look at my bank account. I can show you my bank account. I received no money, or I received less money. I can show you that. Did I invoice the person? Here's a copy of the invoice. I can show that I gave the person that invoice. So it's really almost evidence gathering. I have my facts. I put them in a chronological order. Now I'm evidence gathering to show that I can confirm my facts, because that's the art of persuasion. The first is to be able to tell my facts, and then also to show that they're not facts sitting in my head. There is information that it's reality. This is what happened. Once I've got all that information together, that's when I start thinking, well, in real terms, what do I want from this negotiation? I know the facts. I know why I'm here. But what am I hoping to achieve when I'm talking to that other person? Right? Do I want to get money from them? Do I want to build a better relationship? Do I want to stop having fights with them every time? I have something, the charity, where every time we use a courier service, there's a fight with a courier because he doesn't want to pick up books, So I want him to stop doing that. That's why we're having a dispute. What is it I'm hoping to achieve out of this negotiation, and why? Right? And then how am I going to persuade the other side that what I'm asking for is reasonable and that they should give it to me?
Mm. There's some pretty in-depth work there, isn't there? Even the first work as to, why you're in the situation you're in. It takes a fair bit of honesty for someone to actually go, I'm not the victim and they're not the bad guy, and actually go, well, why are we in this situation? And actually honestly look at some of it.
It really is. It's a point of self-reflection.
Mm.
And it's often scary to go there. It's not scary if it's a pure, commercial deal with did someone give me the money or didn't they? And it's a business decision and there's no emotion. But most of the time with disputes and conflict, there is some emotional pull. And it's really hard to put the emotions aside. It takes a lot of effort to do that. But part of writing down all your information is getting it off your chest. So when you're writing down the facts of what happened and how it happened, if you want to swear in your writing, swear. Just don't put it in an email that you can send, If you're typing it, do it in Word. Like, just make sure, it's for your eyes only until you've had chance to proofread it. Then that gets it off your chest, part of it. And then having to read what you've said. And I always say, after you've had that mind dump, go take a walk, maybe if you like to have a glass of wine, have a glass of, go do something, take your mind off it and come back and read it. When you read it with a clear head, you might even look at what you've said and go, not sure that was accurate, or I'm sounding a little bit too emotional. And then you have that time thinking. But it is important to spend the time, because really, if you don't know your facts and you don't know where you're coming from, and the other side does, and you start having a discussion and they can throw out all information and they've done all the preparation, you often find yourself going, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And that breaks your ability to persuade. So I know that it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time, but there's a reason behind it, both psychological and in achieving your goal.
And I suppose the earlier that you put some of this stuff together, potentially the better too, because if you're doing this 18 months down the track just before litigation and everything's escalated, whereas you could put the work in, within weeks and have it resolved and off your plate as well, which is hopefully, you and I are both big advocates for early stage mediation and getting it over and done with without escalating.
That's exactly right. I'm very much of that mindset that we've got to, make sure that the quicker we can resolve things, the more we can build the relationship, the more we can get on with our lives. Because conflict, it's a poison in a way in your system. If you see it as all that anger and trying to resolve it and sleepless nights, it sits within you and it takes you away from doing good stuff. So the sooner you can focus on sorting out the conflict and moving on with it, or at least having a plan on how to deal with it, the better it is. And I agree with you, Jackie. I would even say if you've had a bad conversation, you think it might end in conflict, write notes about it.
Straight away.
Straight away. Straight away. Why am I feeling, not even if you're going in for a major negotiation, just as to why am I feeling bad, write it down, get it out your system. And you never know when those contemporaneous, it's a big word, contemporaneous notes can help you if you ever, then when it escalates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. There was about 15 tips in that first one. So good.
That's my major one. So I'm happy that.
That's fantastic. All right. What's your next best tip? The next thing that we really have to focus on?
Well, I think, it's your strategy. So once you know what you're looking for, it's still part of preparation, really. Funny that's my major one, is working out strategically, how am I going to persuade the other party to agree to what I need? So part of that is evidence, but also who is that person? What is, what is
psychology?
Motivating? And nowadays, thanks to the internet, don't use ChatGPT quite yet because it lies at the moment. So you might not get a perfect profile because they make things up. But if you go onto LinkedIn or you look at the internet, you might well find information about those people, maybe if it's within a family, you might know, speak to
Mm,
some of their friends, things like that. Do some background information to help you work out what makes them tick, or where are they coming from. Um, you know, and to the extent that they've said what they have about the conflict or the dispute,
mm,
understand where they're coming from. So
mm,
that then gives you an idea of strategically, how do I persuade the other side to give me what I want? I need to make sure that I'm talking the right thing. If I'm speaking to someone who is very commercial, I shouldn't go in, with the whole explanation and emotional explanation of why
yes.
we need this. If I'm talking to someone who is more emotional, then I need to get into their emotions to persuade them.
Mm,
And so understanding who's at the other side and on the other side, making sure that you strategically, whether you want to go in and have a full-on negotiation, whether
mm,
you want to put things in writing first.
mhm,
Um, sometimes we have people we don't trust.
mm,
So we might want to have a lot of the information out there in writing before we
mm.
even walk into a verbal negotiation with them.
Yeah,
Or
interesting
sometimes
point.
we might
Yeah,
say they liars all the time. I actually don't want to be in the room with them.
yeah.
I'll just negotiate via writing. Now, a lot of people don't think about that, but
Mm,
you can negotiate in writing. You
mhm.
don't have to be in the same room. So those are some of the thoughts we have on how, where, what strategically.
Yeah, okay, that's fantastic. And again, it takes a certain mindset, doesn't it?
Mm,
Because even though you said it's part of preparation, you still switched your brain again from very
mm,
much self-reflection
mm,
to then being much more aware broadly of the other person. But it takes, I suppose, a lot of honesty again
mm.
to work out, that this is another human that you're dealing with. Um, yeah, instead of just making them the bad guy or whatever.
Yeah, I think, it's always good to think you're the best person in the room. Why wouldn't we want to think we're the best person in the room?
Hmm.
But we can be kind to the other person who's not as good. We had to
Yes,
take that view,
yes, yes.
and being able to understand that, and also understanding, and this is a really big tip, that no matter how well prepared you are, no matter how great your strategic planning is,
Mm,
the outcome will always depend on who the other person is in the room.
mm,
And I've seen this, when I've been training people and I give
mm.
different groups of people the same facts to negotiate,
Yep.
they will always each group will come up with something slightly different or hugely different.
Mm,
Same facts, same
mhm.
information, same strategy plan. Once they're in the room, the personalities and who they are and what they will will change things. So
Fascinating.
you need to focus on those things
Yeah, yeah,
as
very
well.
important, very
Yeah.
important. Because even though we think we're logical creatures, we're actually emotional creatures that just justify things logically, don't we?
Yeah, I like that. We should have a t-shirt. We're emotional creatures that justify things logically. That's absolutely. How many times do you take a decision and you think it's the right decision and you actually haven't thought through it properly, and then you're
Hmm,
justifying it based
hmm,
on, yeah, now I can logically explain it. Yeah,
that's
why
right.
did I do that? Yeah.
All right. So we've prepared, we've put a bit of a strategy in place in that we've thought about who the other person is, what their personality is like. We've thought about how to approach how, when, and where, and maybe even timing, um, all those sorts of things. So, how to think about strategy. What next?
So in our strategy, yeah, we've got our basket of persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
And now we going into the room. Now, this is quite difficult because I've said prepare properly, have your strategy.
Mm.
But now I'm telling you, now you need to be flexible and listen to the other side.
That makes me uncomfortable. Listen, listen. What a skill.
Listen,
What a
the,
skill.
the skill
Mm.
in negotiation is really listening and
Yeah.
listening hard. I have this saying that I actually, this is one I want a t-shirt. Speak as though you're correct and listen as if you're wrong.
Mm.
And when you go into the negotiation, know exactly where you're coming from, know what you want to achieve. But when you listen to the other side, listen to them with a mindset of, what if I'm wrong? Let's listen to them clearly and let's hear what they're saying. Firstly, because in order for me to persuade them to my perspective or my point of view or what I want to achieve, I really need to understand where they're coming from so that I can frame my persuasion in language they will understand and which they will um,
Relate
you
to.
know, relate to. Yeah, understand and relate to. So from that perspective, it's very important that we listen to the other side carefully. I mean, tactically, sometimes you might go in and put your perspective, your position to the other side, but many a time it's good to just listen. Where you're coming from, let them talk. Take notes, listen to where they're coming from, and then think of how do I frame my argument. I thought about my strategy, but it might change of something they've said.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. And because most of our listeners will be female, I will make a generalization, but I want to empower our audience because I think in listening, I think women often have better listening skills. I think we're able to read between what's being said better. So there's some power. And in listening, are we also listening to our own intuition as we're listening?
Yes, that's the EQ. So we're listening which women, if we're going to generalize, just generalize, tend to have better than men. It's a generalization. But so you use what you have, your skills. And I'm going to say as well, if you're in a negotiation where you're feeling uncomfortable, and often that is the case. I know there are people who have been out of the workplace for a long time and they're coming back into the workplace, or you're going for a job interview where you are almost what I call the supplicant. You're asking for a job, and you're feeling a little insecure about that as well. One of the things to remember is I've got the EQ. I've been negotiating since I came out of the womb with my parents, with my children, with my siblings, with everybody else. I can do this. I don't have to have imposter syndrome. I've just got to be prepared and ready, and I can use what I have. But when I listen, I don't listen with a view to giving into the other side. I listen with a view to how do I frame what I want in a way they'll hear.
Yes.
So it's very Machiavellian.
Yes.
It's, don't say that I'm listening to you and then I'm going to just see what I can give you. No, I'm listening to you because I want to frame what I want in words that you'll understand and you'll listen to.
Oh, there's so much power in gathering information from the other person to use it to your own advantage. Yeah. It's not manipulation. No, but it is a little bit.
It is. In a way, you're using that calming ear. Sorry, at that time of night, a calming ear to listen, and people start opening up to you, and they're thinking that you're only doing it because you're giving in almost to them. And the next thing you reframe everything in a way because you've taken what they've given you and you reframed it and packaged what you want back in ways that they will listen.
And when people talk or vent, often it's releasing a lot of emotion, isn't it? So the more you can listen, can discharge a lot of emotion from the other person too, can't it? So even that's a strategy in itself sometimes, isn't it?
It's a huge strategy. I find letting people talk, and that's not just in a negotiation, letting people get things off their chest, including myself. If you get something off your chest and you really let it rip within yourself, then you can actually take a deep breath and start thinking calmly and in a more informed manner, because we all know what it's like in conflict. So many times I can swear like a trooper on days like when, I'm so angry. Things have really pushed every single button. And you need to be able to get that out before you can actually work on resolving a dispute or a conflict. So letting people air their views is a very strong, it's a strong tactic, but it's also important.
Yeah. And I guess going back to the second tip with strategy, again, depending on the personality type of the other person, you want to release as much of your own emotion during your preparation process and the strategy process so that you're not the one venting and giving away all your own information, don't you?
well, that's exactly right. That's why when your preparation, that's when you vent. So by the time you walk into the session, unless it's a strategy. So sometimes
Yes.
I had one client who didn't have money to pay the debt. They had meant to, they just didn't.
Mm.
And they were people, they were the type of person who would cry
Mm.
very easily.
Mm.
And I encouraged it in the negotiation. They were going to pay back, they just couldn't afford everything. And it
Mm.
was one of the best tactics ever for
Mm.
that specific one. So I know it, again, it's a bit Machiavellian, but sometimes depending
Use
on
what you
what you
got.
negotiate, you use what you got. If you can cry, I'm not saying you should
Yeah.
cry false tears because they
No.
weren't false, and then that will be picked up.
Yeah.
But that kind of emotion can really make a difference depending on what the negotiation is. But it's got to be done with
Mm.
forethought and not as a surprise.
Yes. Yes. Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So 3 tips. They're wonderful. What else have you
Okay.
got for us?
Well, then I think what we've got to do is work out how to where well, there are two things how to keep the negotiation going when we see that
Yes.
it's
Stalling. Hmm.
moving all right. Yeah. And when is the time to walk away? So
Yeah.
this is like I'm going
Mm.
to quote Kenny Rogers for those old enough. You know, you've got to know when to hold them,
Oh, the
got to know when to
gambler. Yes. Yes. Love it.
know when to hold them, fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run.
Yeah.
And so part of that is knowing when to give your position and when not to.
Mm.
Hold them, fold, when to give up a certain strategy and move on. But also, when do I walk away? And when
Mm.
I use the word walk away, I mean give it a break.
Mm. Okay.
Because sometimes you're in the middle of a negotiation, people are very, um, they've got embroiled in
Mm.
in minutia, and they can't move beyond the minutia.
Mhm.
And so you need to be able to say, okay, we're not getting anywhere now.
Yeah.
Either I take a break and go and have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, lunch, or I actually take a longer break,
Yep.
um,
Reconvene.
reconvene at another
Mm.
time, and
Mhm.
rethink where we're coming from. Importantly, try and keep what you've already agreed on the table,
Yeah.
but come back to it. So that's walk away, but I mean, come back.
Yeah.
Knowing when to run is when this is getting completely out of hand.
Mm.
I'm not going to get anything out of it. I'm wasting my time and I need to
Mm.
go away. And in your strategy, in preparation strategy, you need to know when that point is.
Mhm. Mm.
You need to know when this is just a waste of my time and
Yeah.
and actually have a plan of if
For
this
dealing
doesn't
that
work.
next.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's really important because I think people feel like, particularly if they're going into a mediation, for example, it has to be done that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And the problem is, many of the time, and this is where my major complaint is, and why confidentially speaking, this business I have came about was because
Mm.
people would come in expecting to resolve some of the mediations in half a day or that day, and they
Mhm.
wouldn't have prepared for it. So they, in the middle of trying to negotiate a long-term resolution to something where neither side have prepared properly,
Mm.
and you're going to try and resolve it in a day where you still might need to look at other issues before you're
Mm.
ready to resolve.
Mm. But in fact, I guess if you've started a half day mediation and you've got to the point where you
Mm,
agree to go
mm,
away and get more information, even
mm.
that's a step to go, well, we've agreed, we've narrowed some things down, we've made some progress.
It's
Mm.
huge. It's
Mm.
huge. Anything you can agree on. I always say in a conflict, always
Mm.
start with what you can agree on.
Mm.
Even if you can agree that we hate each other, but we need to resolve it.
Yes, yes. We can agree that we never want to see each other again, but we're going to have to see each other at least one more time.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's why we've got to resolve it.
Mm. Mhm.
Yes.
Mm.
So,
So brilliant, all of this. So practical and so just grounding for
mm,
people, because it does come down to some very simple things, really, to have the core basics to go into a negotiation. And of course, we're
mm,
talking in a more formal
mm,
context, but
mm,
all of this sort of stuff can be done, to go in to see the teacher who's called you in because your child has something going on, or it could be,
yeah.
oh, I'm negotiating a night out with the girls and I have to convince my husband it's the right thing to do or whatever, you can apply these strategies to that too. But tell everyone, please, where to find you, but also how you can actually, the services you provide that actually walk people through this process as well, because it could be really overwhelming to people who are so highly emotional to try and extract it by themselves. Such a big body of work. So
it is huge and scary. And so the services we have, it's confidentially speaking, www.confidentiallyspeaking.com.au. You can find us on the web, Google us. And there are a number. We call ourselves a home of negotiation, but the specific service I'm going to send you to is our negotiation preparation service. There's negotiation services. And there we have three services. One is a do-it-yourself. So you can go online, a beautiful online tool. If you feel very encouraged, but you just want something to remind you of what you need to fill in. Right. We have an online tool on a hub where you can, we've got a framework that you answer questions, add information in, you can save it, come back to it, upload documents onto it. So that's something that if you feel I can negotiate, I don't need much help, but I just need a framework to prepare, we've got that. We then have what I love is a simple solution, which is the same thing going on to our online tool in your hub, uploading information, but then you have behind the scenes a negotiation specialist who will assist you put your strategy together, look at your preparation and assist you with that. And then, of course, there's an end-to-end service, which for those of you who really need it, we have that as well. Yeah. But all of it is priced at a reasonable amount and it's upfront. So you don't have to worry about your budget that suddenly things go out, lose control because I've gone to speak to someone and things are there's a lot more involved. So there is a budget involved with it and there are specific costs involved. But that's what happens. And my belief is, and the energy that I want to give it, I want to empower, inform, and educate. So my idea is that once you start using our framework, once you start using the hub, you eventually will be able to do this on your own. You won't need us. And you'll come to us perhaps if you've got something more complex, because you all have a basic understanding of how to negotiate. You've been doing this ever since you were a baby. You have an instinct. What we bring is just more framework around it to assist you to think in a different way. That's all.
I just want to emphasize that even more because we feel like when conflict is bigger than we anticipate or we're uncomfortable with, that we outsource it. However, traditionally, lawyers are not good conflict resolution either. So what we're trying to encourage everyone to do is, yes, build the skills to do it yourself. But even if you do have a lawyer to give you legal advice, you can do this process and you may be more skilled at negotiation than your lawyer who's sitting there in the mediation with you. They're just there to make sure that they can frame the terms of settlement or whatever you come to. But I just think the more you can do yourself, project manage the thing yourself, it's your life. Yeah.
I love what you said about it. It's your life, because at the end of the day, no matter what anyone tells you, you have to live with the result. And so it's for you to determine what it is, not for someone else to tell you. They can frame it, they can assist you, and they can play devil's advocate and test your assumptions and your position. But at the end of the day, you live with the outcome.
Yes. Yes, that's right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom, Elise. It's brilliant. And I'll make sure those links get into the show notes as well so that everyone just can click that and go straight over to this hub because it sounds brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Wonderful.